I have to say, gents, that was a fascinating first chat that we had there. We've got so many listeners' questions coming in. The first question we have is a question for you, Paddy, and it's asking you about your beloved Dundee. Do you think Dundee will get promoted at least via the playoffs?
Well, after watching us against Hearts in the opening game, no, but we do need minutes. A lot of players need minutes. I know beginning to sound like a manager, but one of our Betfred Cup games was called off very sadly because a forfeit Athletic player was tested positive for COVID. I hope he's well and truly restored now. But it in a minor way, it did deny our players 90 minutes of football while Hearts were playing. I know that's a stupid, limp excuse for losing 6-2, but I think we'll get a lot better. I think it was a bit of a false result. I mean, they slaughtered us. I mean, they were, they were yards faster to every ball. And we defended like drains, to be quite honest. If we defend like that all through the season, we'll be lucky to stay in the Championship. But I do think that James McPake will sort it out. After all, he's a former Dundee defender, well, Dundee, Hibs and various other Coventry defender, and a good one. And it's not as if he doesn't have good assistants in Dave Mackay and, well, especially Gordon Strachan, who's very hands-on at the club. And so there's plenty of expertise around there to sort it out, and we've got absolutely no shortage. I mean, the fact is we scored 2 goals at Tynecastle. We scored 2 goals against the best team in the league, and so it's really just the defence that needs to be the defence and the fitness. When I say the defence, I mean you can't expect our back three to do it all, So I mean the whole team needs to defend better, obviously. But when you're not fit, it's hard to do. And we were at least only 4-2 down until late on. So I'm grabbing. You can probably see me grabbing at the straws. Those are straws I'm grabbing at. So I think it will get better. But to answer the question straight, I think it's about 50-50. I think it was about 50-50 that we would have gone up last season because we had momentum and Inverness didn't. And they obviously Dundee United were far and away the best team in the league, and Hearts probably will be this year. So it's a question of whether we can regain that momentum that really bothered the likes of Inverness and other people. I don't know who will be our main rivals, but Ayr United definitely are expected to be up there, and Dunfermline Athletic as well. So I would say 50-50. I'm not wildly optimistic, no.
That was a question from John Bleasdale, and we've got a question that I'll bat these back and forth with you, because we've got a question from Otterman62 on Twitter, who gets in touch from most shows. He's asking you both 10 very quick questions about favourite things. So, Willie, first of all, your favourite animal?
Oh my God, favourite animal?
Supposed to be quick fire, Willie.
A dog. A dog.
Favourite animal for Paddy?
Yeah, sorry, it sounds pretty boring. I'm tempted to say goat because I do like goats a lot, but dog.
I'm going to go to you again, Paddy, with this one, because I think we all know what Willie's is going to be. Favourite sport other than football?
Rugby union.
Willie?
Golf.
It had to be. Favourite film, Paddy?
Airplane, the first one.
Favourite film for you, Willie?
French Connection.
Favourite holiday destination? I'll go with you, Willie, this time first.
Dear. Several. I like Las Vegas.
What about you, Paddy?
Well, of course, I'm not as rich as an ex-footballer, so France. France is as far as I can't afford Las Vegas.
Wasn't from football.
The next one is an interesting one. This one I'll just direct to Willie because I don't know if you'll have one, Paddy. Maybe you do. Favourite golf course you've ever played at, Willie?
Favourite golf course was a place called The Reserve in Palm Springs. Very, very exclusive. And, as you know, I've been fortunate to play Augusta and all round Riviera, Turnberry in Britain, of course. I love Turnberry. But it's called The Reserve in Palm Springs down in California. It was amazing. And I played well. It always helps.
What about you, Paddy?
Well,
Do you have a favourite course?
I've got no. I wouldn't say favourite because I don't like any of them. But I like my most memorable is Penina, where the Portuguese Open used to be played. It's a beautiful place with a lovely hotel next to it. Anyway, foolishly, I went there with my girlfriend at the time, and she's a great. She enjoyed playing all sport, including golf, and we got thrown off the course. First time we tried to play it, we got thrown off for being improperly attired. I was wearing jeans.
No. Patrick.
So that was the end of my golfing career. Yeah.
Otterman's got another question, and again, I find this one interesting. I think you'll both have different perspectives. I'll come to you first, Willie, a former teammate of yours. He's asking, some people accuse Sir Bobby Charlton of being quite dour. Did you socialise with him, and is that true?
Yes, I did socialise. We played golf. And in the early days, Bobby was a very funny man. And he has got a lot. He came through. The Munich thing was horrendous. And of course, it's affected him. He's a nice guy, by the way. He's a really nice guy. He's just very quiet and very reserved. So, no, he's not dour at all. He's a nice guy and a great player, obviously.
From a journalist's perspective, Paddy, what would you say about Sir Bobby?
Well, I would just add, I can't remember having many dealings with him as a journalist, but I would accept in his post-playing career, and I would say he's, a good advertisement for Englishness. He's got that Northeast. I don't know what he was like before Munich, but he's got that sort of slight reserve, yes, but it comes over as modesty rather than arrogance. It's in a different context, you'd say it's the stiff upper lip. He's got that phlegmatism. But I just think he's been a credit to everything, his region, his native region, the game of football, and humanity, really. Even now, he has a foundation, the Bobby Charlton Foundation, which raises money for people who need it.
He's a good guy. He just lives along the road, Patrick.
Yeah.
He lives along the road. He's not playing golf now.
Of the old great players all live in within a sort of 10 to 15 mile radius.
Well, down here in Cheshire, of course, they can't get rid of us. All the jocks are still here, and all the up from Newcastle, they're all still here. We're all hanging on, clinging on to Cheshire. But the sad thing, the thing about Bobby, everyone compares him to Jackie. Now, Jackie was very gregarious, very outgoing, funny, and they always said, "Oh, Bobby's not like that. Jack's a great," and it's unfair. Bobby's Bobby, and Jack was Jack. Jack was a great guy.
There's no reason why they should be identical twins. I mean,
he's a good guy. Take my word for it, Ottoman. He's a good guy. He's not dour at all. He's just a very, very nice guy, and I said one of the great players. So.
We've got a very Scottish question from Mark McSherry, who's asking, and I'll come to you first with this, Paddy. Why do you think a wee place like Sauchie produced so many good footballers like Willie Morgan and the Hansons?
Well, I think the reason for that, apart from Willie Morgan, who would they be? The Hanson brothers?
Yeah.
Jim Fleming.
Who?
Jim Fleming. Do you remember
Jim
him?
Fleming.
Patrick?
Well, it's obvious what it is. They all were inspired by the idol, Willie Morgan, the local hero.
No. What it was so poor in the village. It's just a mining village. Everybody worked in the pits. It was a very, very poor place. And all there was to do, there was no televisions, there was nothing. You just played football in the streets. And we played in the streets. There wasn't a football pitch. We played in the streets. Everyone, the whole village. So, and Jim Fleming, he's from Sauchie. Jim played for Partick Thistle, Hearts. I think he came to England, played for Wigan, and he's back up in Inverness. I think he's played for Ross as well, Ross County for a little while.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's well documented how much the mining community, the former mining communities, gave to football. Not just, Shankly, Busby, but Herbert Chapman came from the South Yorkshire and Nottinghamshire coalfield. I mean, the mining community, the degree to which mining communities have produced football players, mining communities that no longer exist, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, but it's quite phenomenal. And in Busby's case, I was only half joking about, when Willie Morgan comes from a place, people are empowered rather than inspired to think, well, if he can do it, I can, sort of thing. And if you look at Busby, he came from Orbiston, and also from that area, Orbiston and Hatton Rig, came probably two of the 10 best players in the world at that time, 2 of the 5, Alec James and Hughie Gallagher. They were Matt's, they were the people that Matt looked up to when he was a wee boy. So it raises your horizons if people come from, look how many before Bjorn Borg, had there ever been a Swedish tennis player? After him, there were loads. Yeah. Because it empowers you when people from your community succeed at a sport.
Lynn Cameron, massive fan of the show. Hello, Lynn. She said, hello, Willie, Callum and Patrick. What is your most memorable game that you've played in for Willie, and most memorable game that you've covered for Patrick?
Okay, Willie.
Most memorable game, I think, when we beat Czechoslovakia to qualify for the World Cup. Of all the games, there was some fantastic, obviously, make my debut at Man United, World Club Champ. There was loads of great games, but that night at Hampden was one of the very, very special moments when we qualified, when we beat Czechoslovakia 2-1. So that would be my number one.
One of my great regrets, Willie, is that I didn't go to the game, but I did record the radio commentary by, I think it was David Francie and Maurice Edelston on the BBC. And the noise when the second goal went in, just thinking about it now makes my hairs, no hairs on my head, but the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Really and I had it taped on a tape recorder, that noise, and every now and again I would play it and I would get really emotional. It was such a deep roar. I mean, were you conscious of that when you were on the park?
Well, they find out, there wasn't that long to go when it was 1-1. And I've been through it, and I got the ball out in the right wing. And I came inside the fullback, which is unusual. Normally I went on the outside. Yeah. And I actually hit the ball with the outside of my foot to Joe Jordan, who obviously headed it in then. Yeah. And the roar was, it was incredible.
It nearly broke.
Even now, you know something. You just talk about that. You know, did you shivers thinking about? It was amazing. I can't describe for everyone. Everyone. Yeah. You were like 5-year-old kids. We were running around being stupid, and it was just a great.
I think some of the players picked up Willie Ormond and sort of tossed him in the air. And
they did.
It was. I can certainly remember that. I was going to be. If you ask me about my most memorable, I'm tempted to say Dundee United, and I'm a Dundee fan. Dundee United 5, Borussia Mönchengladbach 0, and Paul Sturrock that night gave one of the greatest performances I've ever seen a forward give. Paul Sturrock's one of the most underrated players I've ever seen in my life, but and he was highly rated, but he doesn't. Nobody seems to talk about him when you talk about the greats, and he wasn't far off being a really great player, Paul Sturrock. But I'm just saying that to annoy my pals, Dundee FC. No, the most memorable game for me was when Dundee won the league in 1961-2. We were drawn in the first round of the Champions League, it would be called now, against Cologne, who were third favourites to be champions of Europe that year. And we went, and I remember I was behind the Provost Road goal with a homemade banner, the DFC. I was clever with words even then, but the thing is that we're after 20 minutes, we were 5-0 up. 5-0 against a team we were really scared of. I remember thinking, listen, God, please give us a 1-1 home draw, and then they'll beat us 3-0 away, and we can go out with our heads held high. That's what we all expected to happen. We're 5-0 up after 20 minutes. We won 8-1. We're beaten 4-0 in the second leg, and we went on to reach the semi-finals. If we'd beaten Milan in the semi-finals, we'd have got to Wembley for the final. We'd have been the first British team to get to a European Cup final. But anyway, we didn't. We were beaten 5-1 in San Siro. But I mean, Dundee 8, Cologne 1. What else do you expect me to say?
Great answer. And the next question is from Steve Mercer, who appears to be a new listener to the show, which is great. We're growing every fortnight. He's asking, welcome. How highly do both of you rate George Best with the power of hindsight with what's came after him? How highly do you rate him in the echelons of football?
That's got to be Willie.
Bestie, obviously, great player. One of the great players. You know, in the era I played in, there was many great players, Steve. Many great players. George being one of them. Di Stefano, Puskás, Dennis Law, Jimmy Greaves, Dave Mackay. I mean, the list is endless. And Cruyff, Johan Cruyff, one of the great players. But then you had Pele, who was the greatest of us. I mean, Pele was in the league. Believe me. I remember when Bestie came back, he'd gone to America. 76, I think George went, 75 or 76. Came back and we were out having a drink. And he said, you have to come to America. You'll love it. You'll love it. He said, it's easy and it's great. He said, and Pele, he said, he got the ball. Willie, he said, you've never seen anything like it. He got the ball, he stood still, and he hit this 50-yard pass right across, right to the, and he said, he's amazing. So, and of course, I went in 77 and played against him, but you know the story. Went back to his dressing room, but George was a great player, and as I explained on this program many times, much maligned, a load of rubbish been talked about him, rubbish, and written about him. He wasn't nothing like what they tried to portray him as. He was a good guy, he was a nice guy, he was unfortunate that he left Manchester and went to London. That was George's downfall.
Yeah.
If he hadn't have gone, if he hadn't left Manchester, George would still be here. Tell you now, George would still be here. He was just a great player and a very, very nice guy.
Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, we were great friends. We, they always thought when I joined, the rivalry is going to be.
Yeah.
We shook hands. We went for lunch, not dinner, and we became pals that day, and we stayed pals ever since. And said so much rubbish written about George, and he wasn't a drunkard when he was playing. That's absolute garbage. Yeah. He wasn't quoted with the drinkers at the club, Patrick.
No,
there was a few at the club could drink, but George was one of them.
But Jimmy Ryan, for a start, I'd like to endorse what Willie said about George as a person. I won't. The story takes too long to tell. I hope I'll be able to come back on and tell it one day about George. But the point of the story is that this was one sweet young man, and as the drink ate away at his soul later in life, many years after he'd stopped playing, he did develop less elegant sides to him, which came out from time to time. But you're quite right. A lovely, lovely human being he was in all my experience of him. And Jimmy Ryan, who a native of Stirling, who Willie will know very well, Manchester United stalwart as well.
Yeah.
And
good right winger.
If he hadn't played in the same position as Willie Morgan, he might have got more games.
He would have still been there.
But Jimmy Ryan told me that George and he became very friendly when he first went, when they both first went to the club. And part of the reason, there were two reasons for that. They both liked going out in the afternoon to Longford Park, where there was a pitch and putt course, and girls would come, and they both liked a pretty girl. And the other reason they got on so well was that neither of them liked alcohol. And that was when George was 18, 19 years of age. He just didn't like it. And Jim said that when they went out, George would make a bottle of beer last a whole evening, and even then there'd be half of it left in the bottle at the end of the evening. So Willie's quite right. Throughout his football career, certainly during his time at the top, there didn't seem to be a problem, which is why probably looking back on it, both the great Matt Busby and a lot of George's friends misdiagnosed, and perhaps didn't take his illness as seriously as they would now.
Last question we have is a very interesting one. I'm going to come to you first, Willie, because I think your answer might be slightly different to Patrick's. How many of the 99 treble-winning Manchester United team would have played in Sir Matt's team?
None.
Ooh,
pressure's on, Paddy.
that gives me a bit of a test. Well, the first one that I'm
okay. Listen, just before you come in, Patrick.
Yeah.
Just before you come in, maybe one.
Yeah,
that'd be the goalkeeper. That'd be the goalkeeper.
Oh yeah.
Although Alex Stepney was a great goalkeeper. I mean, Alex Stepney was a great goalkeeper. Goalkeeper.
But
Schmeichel, one of the all-time great. Schmeichel is one of the three greatest goalkeepers, in my opinion, with Gordon Banks and Pat Jennings, that ever played in British football. So
right, I would definitely...
the goalkeeper, but you know something, Stepney didn't have that much to do when he was in that team anyway. So the goalkeeper was irrelevant.
But no, that's true. Now Stepney is one of the nicest men I've met through Manchester United, and one of the most likable people. And of course, he was a tremendous goalkeeper. But I agree that Schmeichel is a division above pretty well any goalkeeper. So definitely Schmeichel. The only other one, the one that sprang to mind, was, and it depends which Busby team you mean, but Jaap Stam would have taken a bit of, would have given Bill Foulkes a run for his money. I think perhaps not as combative as Foulkes, but more refined, if you like, as a player. Despite Foulkes' assist in the Bernabeu. But apart from that, you really start to struggle, because there have been some good left backs like Evra, but frankly, Evra's not a tenth as good as Tony Dunn.
No.
Not a tenth. Gary Neville, maybe at the expense of Shea Brennan. Possibly. But apart from that, well, it would be very difficult to make a case for even Dwight, even York and Cole, who as a combination were one of the best I've ever seen. But were they individually better? I don't think you could say that. No.
You're going to leave Dennis Law out for one of those? Not in a million years.
You couldn't. Oh, by the way, do you mind?
And Brian Kidd was brilliant up front to Dennis.
Yes, yeah, but Dennis would be the first choice, and frankly, York and Cole, great though they are, very good though they are, you can't compare them with Dennis Law. But even Dennis Law, just to go back very briefly, I forgot to say, I was so busy talking about George's personality that I forgot to say he's the most naturally gifted, both in terms of strength and skill, the most naturally gifted footballer I think I've ever seen. The best I've ever seen in the flesh is Diego Maradona by a long way, but the best British player I've ever seen in terms of ability, definitely George. In terms of team sense, he wasn't in Dennis Law's league, George, but in terms of all-round strength, ability, he was even better than Dennis Law and Bobby Charlton. Better than both of them, but they were more clever in terms of relating to the team. Am I being a bit harsh on George there, Willie?
I think, it's really quite simple. George couldn't do what Dennis did. Dennis couldn't do what George did. Bobby couldn't do what George did. George couldn't do what Bobby did.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Everyone was a specialist in his own position. It really was that simple.
That you put it, and not only the specialists, they were the best in the world at their position. I mean, can you imagine, Callum, 3 Ballon d'Or winners in the same team? They won, those 3 players that Willie's just mentioned, won the Ballon d'Or in a 5-year period. Best, Law, Charles. It was like having Ronaldo and Messi in the same club. I mean, that's how much of a golden age for Old Trafford that it was when those 3 were playing. Anyway, apologies, Callum. I'm ruining the schedule by changing the subject and going back.
Hey, it's great, Patrick. It's absolutely great. The thing is, we could do a 10-hour show. That's the difference. It'd be easy.
Well,
absolutely.
I think even Callum might protest at that. He says, "Give me some sleep." Anyway, sorry, Callum. Yeah, go on.
As I say, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you both tonight and answering the questions from the listeners. Before we go, again, thank you, Patrick, ever so much for coming on to the show. The Willie Morgan Show, of course, is broadcasts fortnightly. We're looking to get some more special guests in the future. And before we go, a special mention to Willie's daughter, Gaynor, who is now on travel.radio with her very own show from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Good luck,
Brilliant.
Gaynor. And once again, Paddy, thank you so much for joining us.
That's a pleasure. Thank you very much. And I hope we'll all get together again one day soon.
Let's do it again. It'd be lovely.
Yeah, I'd love
Absolutely
that.
lovely. And you take care.
Willie, fantastic to see you again.
Take care, pal.
And give my very best to Mrs. Morgan.